The Cornish Snapper, The Granite Mystery, a new mystery thriller set in Cornwall. The novel follows regional crime correspondent Thomas Hamilton, who works with a remarkable young press photographer called Verian Lamoran. He is the Dr. Watson to her Sherlock Holmes in this crime story, which takes place in the very far west of Cornwall. The world-weary Hamilton watches as Verian ducks and dives into all manner of places, discovering hidden clues with the help of her digital cameras. It is 2002, and the old newspaper hack watches askance as the youthful snapper clicks her shutter again and again to discover the truth that lies behind two feuding fishing families who work along the craggy coasts of West Penwith. So that's the audio from the trailer we made for my new novel, The Cornish Snapper, The Granite Mystery, a thriller set in West Cornwall. I actually wrote the very first, much shorter version of this story back in 2002, and the reason I did so was because I'd heard a programme on BBC Radio 4 discussing how crime was dead. The panel of famous crime writers agreed that new crime fiction, in the old whodunit sense at least, was becoming difficult, if not impossible, outside a police procedural drama, because no one but specialist officers and official backroom techies were allowed anywhere near crime scenes any longer. The whole idea of a non-police sleuth like Sherlock Holmes was laughable, and the likes of a Miss Marple even more so. Fair enough, but I did find myself wondering about the crime correspondent of a large regional daily newspaper, like the one I worked for. Surely he or she would have every reason to be sniffing around the latest crime stories. And that is when I had the brainwave that it would be the correspondent's press photographer who'd be the modern-day Sherlock Holmes. The reporter would fit naturally into the role of Dr. Watson, recording and writing down every twist and turn, while the photographer, or snapper as we sometimes call them, would be the brains behind solving the various mysteries. Why should this work? Because he, or as it turned out she, would be armed with the new digital cameras which were to revolutionise press photography at the time. He, or she, would also have the latest laptop equipment with which they could blow up photographic images to see all manner of tiny hidden clues, which others may have missed. I wrote the initial story, a couple of stories actually, and then forgot all about them for several years. Then one day I was out on a job with the well-known and highly talented Cornish press photographer Emily Whitfield Wicks. She's a good friend of mine, and I was telling her about the snapper stories. And it was she who gave me the idea of converting what had been a male photographer into a female. The whole dynamic made much more sense. A young and vibrant woman working with a rather stale and world-weary, much older hack who'd been there and got plenty of T-shirts. It was obvious that much more fun could be had with such an odd pairing. I have to say here that the resultant snapper, Verian Lamoran, is very much not based on Emily, with the one exception that she does tend to don the kind of camouflaged ex-army gear which I've seen my real-life friend wearing on numerous occasions. As for Thomas Hamilton, the ageing reporter, well, yes, there are quite a few bits of myself in there, but he is not me, and I am not him. Here's how the book begins. The sun had hauled itself up over the Lizard half an hour before we arrived in town, but the mercurial light of dawn still lurks around the confines of Newlyn Harbour, as if the dawn is reluctant to reveal the workings of the night. At the inner quay, though, under the blazing lights of the fish market, the vanishing darkness is denied its attempt to shroud two jagged holes that have been punched into the bows of the Mavis Trigoni. The place is a blur of activity as dealers, porters and trawler folk weave this way and that in the rapid, ice-clad business of selling and buying the fresh, shining, slippery fruits of the sea. You can hear the tannoy blaring out the sing-song of the auctioneer as he steps across the plastic blue crates of sea bass, megrim sole, gurnard, crab, lobster and mackerel. Fish, fresh, white, glistening slabs of the stuff protrude from the ice in the cold stores, and the sight of it alone is enough to make me hungry. I love seafood. When I first came down to live in Cornwall, I wrote a newspaper piece claiming that Newlyn should rank very high indeed in a British list of excellent places. However, this is not Theme Park Great Britain. It is not the postcard version of Heritage UK that the tourism bosses would love to see. I realise we need tourism and the cash and the jobs it creates, and I know that today's sophisticated visitor requires his or her resort to come bundled just nicely so, not smelling of fish, covered in seagull crap, and not echoing with the more fruity language of the fish porters, which is why, for me at least, it is wonderful to come across a buzzing place by the sea which is 100% genuine, reassuringly authentic. Newlyn has yet to embrace the over-sanitised gift shop world of Costa Cornwall. It prefers to get on with the proper job of being a fishing port. A bank of arc lights brighter than the sun illuminates the damaged vessel so that the people gathered on the quayside are able to look into the very guts of her. We'd been told that the Mavis Trigoni, a 65-foot beam trawler, had been involved in a mysterious collision off Lizard Point at precisely 11:38 the previous night. She, I happen to know, was named after the real Mavis Trigoni, an 82-year-old grandmother, the matriarch of a Cornish fishing clan, and she, one assumes, is lying safely abed in the Penzance bungalow where she lives. The boat, which had been given the name by its skipper, her eldest son Jonathan, had limped home with the help of her sister vessel, the Irene Trigoni. Nothing particularly newsworthy, you might think. No one had been injured, save for a few cuts and bruises, and a trawling accident was hardly sufficient to bring a habitual late riser like me, freelance part-time crime correspondent of the main regional daily newspaper, down to the harbour side at such an ungodly hour. But the clue is that the incident had also attracted a small army of police, some uniformed, others donning the white overalls of the scene of crime squad. So those are just the opening lines of the new Cornish Snapper novel. I'm very proud of it. I hope you might try it and give it a read. You might like it, I don't know. Thing is, when you write something like a novel and you don't have a big publisher with lots of editors, you don't really know. My only qualification is 50 years in journalism, which I suppose helped me to decide whether or not I think readers will like something. Newspaper articles are one thing, novels are another. But do try it out and check it out on my website, www.martinhespfoodandtravel.com. I hope you'll give it a look, and I hope you'll be listening to my podcast again soon.